Good afternoon to everyone here at the University of Hawaii and everyone who is joining us through Zoom. We're really happy to have you in both places. Oh, there's a bit of an echo. I'd like to welcome you to today's occasional seminar, which is co-sponsored by the University of Hawaii Manoa's Center for Southeast Asian Studies and the Department of Anthropology. My name is Miriam Stark, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm currently the director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies. It's my honor to introduce the University of Hawaii at Manoa Anthropology's own Professor Christine Yano, former president of the Association for Asian Studies and professor in our department. And she will welcome Dr. Jirattikorn back to her alma mater.
Thank you and welcome everybody. And a particular welcome to Amporn. Thank you, Amporn, for coming to Hawaii, coming home, back home to Hawaii, as I like to call it. And also for offering to give a talk and sharing some of the research that you've done over these years.
Sure.
And so Amporn is associate professor, Department of Social Science and Development in Chiang Mai, Thailand. She's currently visiting fellow at Harvard-Yenching Institute and really soaking in, over lunch I heard of how she's soaking in the Harvard atmosphere and really, which is a very friendly atmosphere, not as intimidating as she thought, and I agree. So her talk today is Masculinity for Sale, Shan Migrant Male Sex Workers in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and the performance of Manhood. You know all that. That was in the flyer that went around. But I just want to say that I really appreciate Amporn's wide-ranging interests. She has interest in transnationalism, in global Asias, what I'll call global Asias, and I thank you for that. She has interest in media cultures, from music to television dramas. So it's migration, yes, and that is her main topic. That's what she's doing at Harvard-Yenching. But she takes migration at a very kind of human level, thinking outside the box, sometimes especially in terms of mediated performances and in terms of gender. So we'll be hearing about masculinity today. Thank you. Amporn.
Thank you.
Should I start now?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming here and thank you people on the Zoom. Before I start my talk, I need to warn you that my talk today is a bit of rated R. It can go up to rated X. So people who are under 18, maybe you need a parental control. So yes, and my talk today is about male sex workers, particularly with the Shan Migrant community in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So I would like to start off with who are the Shan. So let me start by telling you who are the Shan. The Shan are actually the largest of the 7 main ethnic minorities in Myanmar. The population is about 4 to 5 million, which is about 10% of the population in Myanmar, about 50 million people. They believe that they are ethnic cousins with the Thai, but I don't know whether the Thai believe that we are ethnic cousins is another story. So if you look at the above picture, this is quite an urban area in Shan State already. And the below picture is Shan State Army's headquarters, which is located just right at the border of Thailand and Myanmar. So the Shan are still fighting to gain independence, and they're fighting against the military government. So if you look at the map of Shan State, you can see that it's quite easy for migrants who wanted to come and work in Thailand. So they can either just cross the natural border, mostly through this Manhood area, or they can come through the checkpoint and just like later on trying to get into Chiang Mai, which is the metropolitan center of the north. where there are more jobs available. So it's estimated that there are about 200,000 Shan migrants living in Chiang Mai, which is about 1/6 of the total population. Total population of Chiang Mai is about 1.2 to 1.3. So like of 6 people walking in, you have 1 Shan migrant, right? So if you see this photo on the left, you see that on some occasions, they like to celebrate the kind of nationalist sentiment. So they would wear the t-shirt with the Shan, only Shan said map, right? Cut off other areas totally. They would wear the hat that resembles Shan flag. And on the right, you can see that they celebrate Shan New Year, which is the same time with the Thai New Year. And the appearance look similar to the Thai, so they can blend in quite easily. In the middle one is gold shop, which before that, Shan have no way to put money in the bank, so they would buy gold as a way to save money. And then when they go back home, they would carry gold with them. And so the owner of the shop did not know Shan, so he asked someone to put the sign to say thank you to the Shan who are big customers for them. Okay, so how do they come to Thailand and what kind of status they have? They could come through the MOU channel, which is very cumbersome. The boss need to inform the authority that how many of them they want to come, and they have to go through all the process. So a lot of them choose to enter Thailand illegally first and register later as migrant working permit. So they could have either migrant working permit, which they have to renew almost every year or every 2 years. Or they could choose for 10 years card, which is a kind of stateless card, allow them to stay in Thailand for 10 years. But this is also doesn't guarantee the right to move around, to be mobile. Or they could bribe the police to get the Highlander cards, which by principle allow people who reside in Thailand before 1985 to have this card, but then they could use the corruption channel to get this card. So, and on the other hand, sex work is illegal in Thailand. So they can work only in the domestic and manual labor sectors. So if they register, they have to find their own employers and register them with the manual labor sector, which they could be arrested anytime, right? They could be arrested anytime for working in the kind of job that they're not registered for. So what about Shan male migrant sex workers? They have come to replace the native Thai almost entirely in the sex business. Why is that so? I was told that because Thai men go to Bangkok, to Pattaya, to Phuket, which are the major tourist cities, for better chances to get foreign customer and better pay, because they get foreign customers, they could get better pay. And also, partly one of the reasons that there are a lot of child migrant sex workers in Chiang Mai is because of the difference between the Thai and the migrant workers. Migrant workers need to stay put in the province where they're registered for the work permit. They cannot go to another province for work. They have to stay put in that province. So because of this travel restriction, so there's plentiful availability of child migrants who would opt for work considered as easy money and easy job, right? So what interesting about this group, the population, is that they are gay for pay only. So they are straight identifying men, and being gay conceptually is almost non-existent in the Shan community in Myanmar. What I say conceptually is because in Shan state, there are of course transgender women, right? But the concept of gay as seeking same-sex relationship is almost non-existent before. And many of them, not many of them. So they express the feeling that two things. So selling sex is a taboo in Chan community, but selling sex to gay men clients is another taboo. So they face double stigmatization as neither a real man or a good man, right? So previous research talked about these straight identifying men who enter sex work as like fucking queer or nocturnal queer. I'm sorry if I'm too straightforward, but I have to say that. So research in Italy, in Germany, in the UK confirmed that these young men offer sex service to clients as a way of survival. They desire women. So from the health perspective, they could spread HIV to heterosexual population because they sell sex to gay men clients, while at the same time have sex with women, right? But from sociological perspective, their masculinity is in question because selling sex to gay men clients. But at the same time, if they remain dominant position, they feel empowered as the most desired real man. So debate about masculinities in male sex works. On the one hand, it claimed that masculinity is in effect. Their masculinity will be in effect. So it's devalue their masculinity, is considered as immoral, and they are seen as neither a real man or a good man. So in many research about male sex works, talking about performative aspect of performance and performing masculinity has become central to the presentation of self among male sex work in many different sites. So they maintain the tops only position. They perform exaggerated masculinity in the way they dance, they smell, they dress up, just to reconstruct their masculinity that they feel devalued by selling sex to gay men clients. So my research question, I look at this from two perspectives. So one is from economic perspective as clients and workers relationship. So these men are migrant workers. So there's class involved here. So between clients and workers, and also between migrants and native, right? But from the gender perspective, they are the top only, right? And they're playing dominant role. So between these axes of hierarchies, so sex work should be seen as multiple constructed subject involving class, gender, ethnicity, right? So in terms of gender hierarchy, they can claim to be heterosexual men. They might be in dominant position, but in other perspectives, they are lower class, right? So my questions are then how engaging in selling sex to men affect their morality and their sense of masculinity. And then how they try to regain their masculinity being affected by selling sex to men. Our research is involved. This has been done in 2019. I have another set of interview which I will talk about it soon. So this was done in 2019 before the pandemic. So we interviewed 20 male migrant sex workers. We visited several sex venues, including karaoke bars, massage shops, host clubs, and show bars. So we also have besides those establishments, we have 2 freelancers and 2 internet escorts who seek work through the internet platform. The age range is between 18 to 36 years old, and the time spending in Thailand is from 2 years to 20 years. So what about their clients? Who are their clients? So majority of clients identify as gay. So they are local Thais or foreigners. So I need to introduce you to the concept of Gatoi. So the Kathoey, the broader identification of male to female gender identifications. The Kathoey range from going through sex operation, doing plastic surgery, or just like taking hormones, or dress up like a woman, live like a woman, or just like effeminate gay, effeminate men. So the Kathoey, in theory, is different from gay. A gay man seeks same-sex relationship, and Kathoey seek relationship with heterosexual men. So, like if you see in the photo, this they don't go for plastic surgery or they don't go for sex operation, but they dress up and they live like effeminate men, right? So there's another group of clients who are heterosexual women. So heterosexual women clients are coming from, this is before the pandemic, they come from East Asia, like from Japan, from China, from Korea as well. And there's also a group of Thai sex workers, which I must say in Chiang Mai, they're mostly Shan female sex workers who finish work in the karaoke bar, and then they go to the host bar late at night as well. Okay, so if you look at these photos, so now I'm going to talk about the Kathoey as like the boundaries between who are the Kathoey can be very slippery. So you look at this side. So I don't know whether she's gone through a plastic sex operation or not, but of course she took hormones, right? And so she lived like a woman. And in the middle, this person can dress like a man at one point, dress like a woman at another point, and on the left or right hand side. So this guy looked like gay, right? Who seeks same-sex relationship, but he can be called Kathoey as well. So the boundary is quite slippery. So male sex venues in Chiang Mai, we have roughly about 4 or 5 types. So the massage offer massage service plus sex service, which lasts for about 1 hour. So if you want sex service, it would cost double, right? And they also go to if you go to the karaoke bar or host bar. So usually people go there to drink and to be entertained, to be hosted by good-looking male hosts, right? So they don't go there to seek sex, but the men can be taken off with some fee to the manager. And the show bar usually involve a kind of 2 types of services. One is a performance of the man who might dress up in a kind of action hero, Hollywood action hero, like kind of a bit boring, like Superman or Spider-Man. And then they perform a dick show on a stage, right? And so another type of service is a man wearing underwear. So with the name tagged on, clip into the underwear, you could call them to host you at the table. So if you want to take the man off, then you need to pay them the fee, right? And so another type is freelancer, which can be in the restaurant where there are some men workers, but the freelancer would frequent there to solicit the clients. And another type is through the internet. So how did they enter into sex works? Majority of them try other kind of migrant jobs before. They complain about how hard it was, right? So they enter into sex work by the introduction of friends, by the network of friends who have tried this kind of job before. So they would invite them to try out, and they said, it's easy money and easy job. So they would earn 5 to 10 pounds than a migrant's minimum wage. So minimum wage in Thailand is about $10 a day. And so I asked one guy, like, who work in a massage shop, like, how do you do? What is your daily life like? And he said, they pay me to sit in the AC room. And so if I get one client a day, I earn like $40. So if I get more clients, I earn more. And the rest, I just play with my mobile phone, right? So they're motivated into this kind of work because of easy money and easy job. But at the same time, they also, in a way, forced into sex work because of the restrictive migrant employment policies, which prohibited migrants from working in many jobs and sectors that we serve for the Thai only, even though some of them finished like a degree from university, they still have to work in a manual labor, right? Also limited mobility of travel restriction, that the policy did not allow them to move to another province outside where they register. So these are the policies which keep them temporarily legal. So get to the sex work. So the way they position themselves, they claim to maintain authority over sex work. The first thing is to maintain masculine body to attract clients. So they need to build up their body. But when I say that hyper masculine body, I don't mean to be very hyper like Bush, right? Like African American or American Westerner, like very Bush, right? They just have to maintain their body, not to have belly, to have six packs, right? And well, okay, if I go back like this, you see they're not hyper masculine, but they need to maintain the body to be a bit lean, right? So hypermasculine bodies translate into income potential. They know that the good body they have, then the more clients they can attract. So, and the business owner also said that their body is my business. So I talked to one of the business owners who said that, well, the reason that we can charge more is because our boys have good bodies. So the body, masculine body, translate into better pay, right? So the way they also trying to maintain authorities over their work, they control the act of repertoire and sex work, they maintain top only position. All of them claim that they never bottom for clients. So I asked, there must be clients who seek to be penetrative, right? So there must be clients who are active. But what can they do? They said that they can offer only a hand job. So I try to ask, and this is many people question, if clients willing to pay more, would they willing to be bottom? They claim that they will never bottom. Maybe it's a performance, but yeah. So when it comes to this class and gender positions, they seem to claim that they control in this. They have control over their work. They have authorities over their work. They said that they seem to claim that they are sexual provider. They are both a giver and a receiver of a pleasure. They said that what they pay me include me massaging them sucking my cock. I'm sorry if it's too much. So sometimes I masturbate them by giving a hand job, right? So they claim to be a receiver. So their clients pay them to suck their cock. Right? So then they said that they express contempt towards gay men clients by saying that even when they suck my cock, it's still hard for me to get it up. the smell, the feeling is not there. I have to use white glove every time, right? And they also claim to be sexual provider. So our job is to make them fulfill. They release what they desire, and this is what they want, to have sex with a real man. So they claim authorities and power over their time and labor. They would say that, well, if they pay me so low, I'd rather go back to sleep, right? So they're in control of work activities and boundaries. They set up the act of repertoire. They say that no lip kissing, no oral sex on the part of sex worker. The sex worker can receive oral sex to suck their cock, to do a blowjob, but they will not perform a blowjob to the client. They can use only hand. So they can never be bottom, right? So then they would claim that the Gatoi would pay me to suck my cock, right? The Gatoi knows how to please the real man. They said that, well, the Gatois the gay men are real pleasers. They would pay me to take me out for food and drink. Then they would suck my cock. They would do everything to please us. So they claim to be in control and authorities. But at the same time, they claim that I don't want to have sex with them. We just do this for money, right? So I would frame this in the way of levels and layers of desire, right? So they position themselves in the heterosexual masculine man by maintaining their bodies and being exclusively taught, claim to sexual provision, being in control in sexual interactions. The kind of self-positioning as heterosexual allows them to distance themselves from their queer clients. And while gay men, by being framed as effeminate, they are considered as weaker and lower class sexual actors because they are bottom. So if you can see from this photo that some sexual establishments even provide a small gym inside the venues for these workers to work up their body. And they discipline their body seriously. They work out like 2-3 hours a day. The gym, the sexual establishment also provide the gym for them. So, but why the many prior research always claim that this man masculinity has been devalued. So they reconstruct their masculinity. So among these Shan Migrant male sex workers that I interviewed, the way they reconstruct their masculinity that seem to be devalued by selling sex to gay men clients is by having many women as sexual partners. Some would claim that, oh, I'm seeing like 3 women at the same time. I'm sleeping with 3 women at the same time. So they also engage in drinking and womanizing. They often say that the more we earn, the more we spend. It's like, so today we earn 2,000 baht, we spend 2,500 baht. So easily earn, easily spend. This is what they say. So, and some claim to have regular support from female clients, which is seen as bolstering their masculine identities. They would claim that all women like support me. I would approach like 2 women at the same time and they become my sponsor. Yeah, this is what they say. And then surprising information that I received is that they don't use condom when having sex with women. This is a way to claim a sense of manhood, right? Some claim that they trust their own judgment of who is a clean woman. So I asked like, who is clean? How do you know that she's clean? They would say that if she goes out with me on the first date, then she's not clean. If she playing hard to get, then she's clean. If she like hold it for 2 or 3 times, like not having sex with me. On the first time, then she's clean. Then I don't need to wear condom. Okay, so previous research claimed that this man, the masculinity has been devalued. So therefore, they need to reconstruct their masculinity. But previous research did not say that reconstructing masculinity involves different life domains and different work and life domain. And masculinity is not a singular concept. So what I discovered is that the way they reconstruct masculinity involve different life and work domains. So on the one hand, they might engage in a locally constructed hyper masculinity, right? By drinking, womanizing. But on the other hand, I discovered that more than half of them engage in 2 jobs. They work in a straight job before, they work as a night job. So they differentiate between migrant labor and sexual labor. So they would say that they need to earn income from migrant job, from migrant sweat. So for them, this is how I interpret it. Migrant sweat make them a real man, or turn immoral body back into a moral body, right? So being a real man also means having a clearly defined life goal with a saving purpose. They would say that my earning from a day job, I send home to my mother to build a house. I can use money from my night job for myself. I like a big bike, so I use money from night work to buy big bike. So a big bike, it equates to a sense of hypermasculinity, right? And one guy who came back to sex work less than a year, has been involved in sex work before, but he quit, then came back. So I asked, like, why did you come back? Said that his wife got pregnant and he felt that he needed to save money. So, and then when his child is born, then he will quit sex work, which in a way is to be a responsible father, is to be a real man, right? So also sending money home to their parents is to express a filial responsibility, helping him to regain a sense of a real man. So previous research talked about this, but they never say that to claim themselves as a real man involve a lot of tensions and contradiction. So they're doing this just to regain a sense of moral self, right? To sustain self-acceptance and to regain a status as a legitimate real man, masculine man, right? Which sex work seems to devalue. They realign themselves with the masculine norms, but by way of realigning themselves with the masculine norms, involve a lot of tensions and contradictions, as I have shown that in many different spheres of life that they struggle in order to regain a sense of a real man. So living up to these conflicting notions of masculinity simultaneously involve contradictions. So we can see that as the concept of masculinity is not singular, right? So on the one hand, they engage in the new hegemonic norms of masculinity. By new, I mean the relationship between clients and workers, which they never have been prepared when they decided to migrate to Thailand. They never prepared themselves for. So they engage in the new hegemonic norm of masculinity. They build up their body, which is not required for a migrant job, right? So they maintain top position, control over sexual exchanges, and being pleased by effeminate gay men clients, which these are all new that they align themselves. At the same time, the old hegemonic norms lie in the institutional and structural expectations that associate with masculinity. Being a good migrant, this is because this is what they migrate to Thailand for, right? Doing straight work, sending money back home to their parents, being a good son, being a responsible father. This is an old hegemonic norm of what it's meant to be a real man, right? But at the same time, in many cultures, what it means to be a real man is also about drinking, womanizing, engaging in risky sexual behavior. So with all of this, that they have to reconstruct themselves, right? To reclaim a sense of a real man, that sex work seems to be devalued. So what is all about, what is Shan about these stories that I have told? So they are non-citizen migrants who are structurally disadvantaged in the global political economy, right? So they're disadvantaged class background, they refashion themselves. And so the question that is then, if class differences are recast by gender differences where Shan men are empowered as the most desired real men. So my take on this is that in the sphere of gender hierarchy, they might refashion themselves as a heterosexual man, and they are empowered and desire. But in other spheres of life, like which involve class differences as well, like among the establishment, among the business and the nation state, they cannot recast the class difference, right? So before I end my talk, I wanted to talk a little bit of the second set of my data collection, which I have done it. Yeah, I interviewed 13 of them during the pandemic, which the data collection was conducted in March and April 2022 last year. So and at that time, the government just began to relax restriction. So the question is then, how sex work is shaped, or how the pandemic shaped sex work during the pandemic? How did they do? Okay, so I discovered that among the 13 men that I interviewed, about 10 of them opt for online sex work. So they become self-employed. So no establishment to help them anymore by the client. So sex venues were shut down for nearly 2 years. So some returned to straight work, but once sex venues were open again, they come back to sex work. But those whom I interviewed, they were not the same group of population that I interviewed before. So the most common strategy is to become a freelancer, so to work as an online escort. But so when I asked them, like, how do you do during the pandemic, they would say that there are both negative and positive aspects of working as self-employed. So they have to set, as Twitter is the most popular platform in Thailand for such kind of work. So they have to create their profile on the Twitter, and they have to solicit clients on Twitter. They have to have skill as massage, because clients would want more than sex. Clients would also want massage, right? So they also have to deal with clients at their home. So they have to go to the client's home because there's no hotel. And so clients also don't want to pay for the hotel room. So they have to manage the risk. They have to go to the client's home, but they said that because the clients are gay, so they are effeminate, so they consider as weaker, then they don't need to be afraid of gay men clients. But at the same time, they're also afraid that clients might drug them or might take pornography video of them and sell online. So this kind of risk has to be managed by itself. And so my argument about this post-pandemic or pandemic era that affect sex work is that they have become neoliberal subjects. So they require different kinds of capitals. So pre-pandemic, before pandemic, they could use sexual capital, right, to be in control, to be in authority. But during the pandemic, they need other kinds of capital, and those who can survive have other kinds of capital, being massage skill, or some turn to become like entrepreneurs. So some would set up a kind of small brothels, which there's no venue exists, but he could call the Shan brothers who desperate to gain extra income because it's pandemic time, right? So they could just call them to offer if there are clients who interested in selling sex, in buying sex. So, and many of them also need to lower their price because during the pandemic, so clients also are affected by the pandemic as well. So some set up, some said that, oh yeah, I borrow money from my clients to buy a car, and then I offer kind of chauffeur business and to take the gay clients around and then offer them massage. So they said that gay clients trust people like us, right? So this is like, so they become like self-constitute, and their self-constitution becomes pragmatic, instrumental, and privatized. They have to manage risk from being self-employed. And what I say as the neoliberal subject is one is they reorganize their lives, they instrumentalize their lives without emotion involvement. So one guy who used to work as a host in a host bar for many, many years. So he said that when I work in a host bar, I enjoyed it too much because in a host bar, you get a lot of female clients. So I said, you get a lot of women, you get a lot of money. So I spend it on, I don't have any saving at all because I enjoy it too much. But now during the pandemic, so I become a masseuse come sex service. So I just take Viagra in 1 hour. I earn income already. So I don't need to enjoy it. So this is the kind of the notion of neoliberalism, which no emotional involvement, just instrumentalize yourself, right? So, and the other aspect is like self-constitution is pragmatic, it's privatized, so they need to be self-employed, they need to be entrepreneurs. But by saying all this, I don't say that exploitation has ended. So, and not everyone have skills, have resources, have capital and tools to manage the pandemic. Okay, so I think I will end now. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Amporn. Your talk did not disappoint. And can we receive questions from any Zoom? All right. First of all, why don't we start with people here? Do you have questions? I do have a question about field work.
Okay.
How difficult was it to get permissions to do field work? And here in the United States, we're so restricted to the kinds of questions we can ask and sometimes the kind of field work that we can conduct.
Okay, so we get the IRB, which was quite difficult to get, but we managed to get it. And so with the help, because this is the part of the bigger project that we did it with the health-related issue with HIV. So we also take kind of did the test. This part of the scientific research did the test for HIV, this and that, and this is done through the help of the local NGO that work to provide PrEP for them. Yeah. So I don't know, should I explain about PrEP? It's for male sex workers who can take it before they engage in an unsafe sex, so which could prevent HIV. So this local NGO help providing PrEP, PrEP for sex workers. So we get access through this local NGO, then we can interview them. Yeah. And the local NGO also said that it's difficult because sex work in Thailand has turned into a kind of informal sex work venue, which they don't provide sex service in the venue, in the establishment. So the business, and some of the managers also told me that if the manager negotiate the price with the clients, then we could be charged against human trafficking. So they let the workers to negotiate the price with the clients themselves, but they take off the fee from the workers. To see the kind of like, hypocrite thing that, so they cannot involve in dealing with sex work because they will face the charge of human trafficking. So they let them do it by themselves, and they claim that this is not our job. They do it by themselves, but at the same time, they charge the fee if they want to take the workers out. So then the NGO was saying that it was difficult to gain access to get the men to come for interview, because then they would claim if they send the workers for an interview, they admitted that they said it, right? So it was quite difficult. So, but in the end, because of the relationship that the local NGOs established with them by providing safe sex knowledge and providing the ways in which they could help migrant workers dealing with safe sex, so they gain trust with the migrant.
Questions from the audience? Rick.
Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to follow up on the sort of the research methodology. First, I wasn't clear. I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Are you of Shan ethnicity yourself, or are you Central Thai, or what is your?
I am Thai. I'm Central Thai.
Okay.
I can speak Thai.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering in terms of your positionality versus the people you work with. So that I assume that when they saw you as quote an outsider, you were not an insider.
Yes, I admit that. And also my positioning as a woman, so they might feel that they don't want to talk about this thing with me. So, but I try to speak Shan to them. I try to make them feel relaxed and just like ask them to tell a story. But I admit that there are some like kind of drawback that they feel as talking about this thing to a woman, right? And in some aspects, they might even perform, right? So what they tell me might not be a truth, but I can take this as a performance.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because you are a woman and an outsider, they might be perhaps more candid than if they were talking to somebody in their own community. Because you don't really count. I mean, you're not not going to get back to their mothers. But the other question I had, which is related to content, is that the Shan are, of course, are state. What do you call them? They're seen as in Thailand as second class because they're from Myanmar. But they're also a minority within Myanmar themselves. So I was wondering, does the same kind of sex work go on in Myanmar between, I guess, the Shan people and the majority of Burmese? And if so, then is it the same dynamic? Or do you know?
That's an interesting question. I would say that among the majority Burman people, they have a kind of stereotype of Shan women. And it happened a lot that Burmese men would want to marry with the Shan woman to claim to be innocent, pure, more beautiful than the Burmese. And in terms of sex work, it might happen inside Myanmar, but I am not aware of male sex work in Myanmar. It might happen in a kind of hidden. It's not like in the establishment like this. Yeah. So I'm not aware of male sex work in Myanmar. And I don't think that child migrants would go for that, because if you see in the map, it's close to Thailand more and they get more paid, right? So why would they go to Yangon, for example, to get less pay, right? Yeah. And they could speak Thai easily, right? So.
It's perfect. Again, thank you very much, Amporn. That was most really interesting. But I'm wondering if you went to Pattaya, Phuket, so you've talked about straight men becoming involved in this primarily for economic reasons. Would you expect to find the equivalent Thai men, straight Thai men, also becoming involved in this kind of activity for economic reasons, because the pandemic has had, big effects on Thais as well? Or is what you're describing purely a product of a migrant situation, primarily a product?
Okay, yes, very interesting question. I would say that previous research claimed that heterosexual Thai men also engage in sex work in quite a large number, more than gay identifying men. So, but in Thai context, it's the mix of gay men and heterosexual men who involved in sex work for gay sex person. Yeah. But for the Shan, things that the majority of them are heterosexual men. Although in the second set of interview, I discovered 2 gay identifying Shan men. Yeah. So, but interesting, which is something I don't know how I would like put it in my paper, because 2 of them seem to claim that they become gay when they are in Thailand. They know that they try to date women in Chiang State, but they know that they don't like women. But once in Thailand, they kind of feel that there's the culture that accepting to be gay, so they become openly gay. Yeah. So this is something. And then there's one guy who I classify him as bisexual. He said that he said, I'm not sure if I'm straight or gay, but he has pleasure of having sex with gay men. And he claimed to be exclusively top, but he felt that maybe because I work in this business for too long, so I started to feel that I have pleasure having sex with men more than women. But he said he has a woman as a girlfriend and he wanted to get married just to prove that he's the man. Yeah. He struggled to accept. Yeah.
Hi, Amporn. I've known Amporn for so long, but I've never got to hear her give a presentation. So this has been really nice. 2 things. One, let's start out with some humor. If UH gave an award for the most colorful language for a presentation, it's looking a really strong contender. So I applaud this if there was such an award. Secondly, I really appreciate for transparency's sake, had this conversation at my house earlier this week. The agency that you bestow upon through your narrative to the sex workers is really appreciated. I understand that that's a much more common way of examining sex work in Thailand. It is so not, at least in the United States. And so that's really great to see and hear. And I agree with where that agency is placed. I am like so torn on this whole idea of sexual identity as presented in your presentation. You know, and part of the reason why I'm having such a hard time articulating it is that sexual identities and practices are so defined by the cultures that you're within, right? And I've lived in Chiang Mai for a decade, so I'm pretty familiar with that. I identify as queer, but not as gay. And so I also really appreciate these not binary conditions. But like, I feel like there had to be some sort of performance that they were doing for you as a woman in terms of going back to methodology of like, so it's like so adamant that they're straight, right? And I feel like I kind of don't believe that. I've spent a lot of time like with people who are of all sorts of sexual persuasions over the years, and like, you know, my straight male friends in Burma, Burmese, as well as Shan and Thai in Bangkok and Chiang Mai, they would never fuck a guy. They couldn't. They would never be able to get hard. I'm gonna go on with the colorful. I mean, it's the right term for that. So I mean, they would never be able to do it physically. And so, like, are they all on Viagra in order to be able to perform in that way, or you know? So I just like, you know. The final thing I want to say is there's a story in here that is not spoken to that I find equally fascinating, which is these are primarily foreign clients. Is that what you said?
No, local too, local Thai.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that complicates it even more. But like their desire to want to be fucked. I don't know. I almost forget the more polite language.
Penetrated.
That's one of the words by so-called straight men. Like that is that kind of fantasy that a lot of gay men have in cultures around the world to be penetrated, thank you, Miriam, by a so-called straight identifying man, like is also a really interesting part of this narrative that maybe that's a part two, or you're already past part two, but like it would be interesting to understand, unravel that as well.
But how can she? Because they're always going to talk to her in a certain way, from what you're saying, because of her positionality.
No, the gay clients.
Oh, like.
I want to hear the story of the gay clients and why what is this whole thing going on with them?
Okay.
They're going to these Shan men because they identify straight and present
So many
themselves as
questions.
straight.
Sorry. Can I also just add in from Rachel Engel, because she is also sort of asking about that, particularly saying, if the clients were East Asian or Central Thai, how did it impact their relationships with it? She actually asked about the services, Kevin, but also how it impacts their relationships with their clients. We know that Thailand's social stratification specifically marginalizes ethnic minorities, like Isan, Malay Muslim. Be interesting to understand those dynamics. So maybe we could just generally talk about clients and relationships. Rachel, I hope that's okay.
Okay, before you do that, could you just reiterate who are the clients?
Yeah.
Okay. So the clients are local Thai and foreigners. So foreigners coming from Western countries, also East Asian, like Japan, Taiwan, China, Korea, right? So foreigners, clients consist of a few heterosexual women, but not uncommon. So clients, but because of like the different venues offer different kind of services, right? So foreigner clients would go to show bars or massage, erotic massage. They won't go to karaoke or host bar because of the language that they need to negotiate with the workers themselves. So they wouldn't do that, right? So for local Thai, the clients are mostly gay men, as I said. Some are effeminate men or some transgenders as well. For the women, local clients mostly are karaoke women, which also, I would say that they are also Shan themselves, who work in a karaoke as sex workers, but because they work as a sex worker, they take care of the clients, male clients. So they earn money. They want to be taken care of by a good-looking man. So they go to the host bar, and they might not need sex, but the sexual interaction happen afterward, which may be by mutual consent, right? So this about clients. And so the question about the agency that, well, very early on, we talked about agency. So I would say that I've been thinking about this a lot, whether I have given them too much agency. So in my second paper, I'm trying to go back, step back, and to see that because they are in the intersectional position, right? There's not only relationship between migrant and workers and the clients. So they have relationship with the nation state in which they are not part of. They're non-citizen migrants. They have relationship with the business, which they have to follow what the establishment wanted them to do. So if I look back into my data, so only that positioning as a heterosexual men can make them relatively in control, almost equal with clients, only with the gender hierarchy, not with the class background, with the nation state, not with the migrant and ethnicity. So this is a part about agency, which I think in a way as common in many cultures in the world as patriarchy. So being heterosexual men, you have more power, right? So women desire you, gay men desire straight men, right? So this is common, which we cannot deny that. So the question about whether if they're straight, can they fuck gay men? So they rely on white glass, the business venues provide white glass for them. And so which some of them say that it's not good. They know that they have to take white glass. If they have like 5 clients a day, they said that I need to take white glass and hold it, not to come. So if we are going to be straightforward, I would go all the way. Right? So they have to hold it for the first client, not to come. If they come on the first client, they cannot take 5 clients a day, right? So some of them take white glass, other relies on pornographic video. So this is a joke that they would go to the hotel room with the big TV. And so the clients would tell them that, see above, don't look at the bottom, right? Because if they look at the bottom, they see the client who are bottom. But if they look up, they see the video of the heterosexual pornography, right? So some relied on the pornography, others relied on imaging, right? So they fantasize. And so mostly white glass, but some sex venues like massage don't allow them to use mobile phone, so they have to rely on white glass, right? So this is a thing, and the fact that
Excuse me, can you just explain the mobile phone? I lost you there. Well, what's the mobile phone utility?
In the massage place, the workers are not allowed to bring their mobile phone. Because, you know, the clients also not allowed to bring mobile phone in case like they might take a photo of the place. And so if they're not allowed mobile phone, then they have no way to watch pornographic video through their mobile phone to get erected, right? So that's the problem as well. So yeah, and so the desire to, I need to talk to the gay clients, right? Well, Kevin, I don't want to say that I talked to your ex. I'm sorry.
They got really personal, really fast.
Anyway, no, it's not true. It's not true. I'm sorry. Yes, so I talked to 3 gay men clients who said that they never bottom. No matter how much money the clients offer to pay, never bottom, because by being bottom meaning that they demasculate or emasculated, right? So they would never do that. And so even the gay men clients who I talk to are masculine gay, right? So they are penetrating, but they go to this kind of service. They said that they just want to have sex with the real men, and even if they're masculine gay men, they're top, exclusively top. So, but they can just get a hand job. So yeah, this is why. So this is what I talked to. The last one is about the relationship with the East Asian. I don't know whether it's gonna affect relationship between Thailand and East Asia. So I don't know, but so the question is like, do they know that these people are migrants? So I asked the workers if the clients from outside the country know that they are migrants, and they said some ask, like if you're not from here, but they don't care. They would care only to get a real straight man.
Miriam, do you have a question?
I'm trying to respond to the many questions we're getting. So a few of the people are asking about perceptions back home. So first of all, do the families know, right? They're getting remittances. Do they know that their sons are doing this? And if they do, how do they feel? Do they accept it, or is it stigmatized? And then finally, related to that, if it's not so stigmatized, could it be that the construction of masculinity as so hyper male makes sense to some people because the Shan are known for being resistant. They're very successful. They're revered for their resistance to the Burmese army. So they're already considered quite strong, right? So is that somehow a buffer? So is there stigma? Is there not stigma? Is there secrecy? Is there not? Is there less stigma because they already are, all right, I'll just say it, badass. Like they're recognized in general as being very strong. Okay, that,
Thank you. So about stigmatization back home. So definitely, yes. They never be able to tell their parents back home that they're selling sex. So they said that this is the whole reason of like trying to regain masculinity in a sense of sending money back home, trying to regain masculinity by being a good son, right? Because if their parents, they would say if their parents, if their relatives know that they come to Thailand, they use the Shan word as like selling dick, they would be stigmatized totally. They would be seen as like really not a good man, not a real man. Their parents would not accept it. And they would say that if my parents know, then they would also think of me as gay. They would say that why would you do that if you're not gay? Because there would be plenty of gay men who were willing to do that. But why would you do such kind of job? And this is very interesting if you compare with their partners, because majority of them have partners, female, heterosexual female partners, right? I asked if their female partners know. So maybe half of them would say that they know, but they're okay with it. Then they would say, so long as you sleep with gay men, it's fine. If you sleep with a woman, then it's another problem. It's another story. So gay men is considered as a second-class woman. So it's not considered as like cheating or anything. And if you sleep with another woman, then it's a problem.
Can I just interrupt you and ask an additional question? So would the families back home object less if the men were prostituting themselves with women, if there were female clients? So is it the prostitution or is it the homosexuality that becomes the source of family friction?
Right. This is the question that I did not ask them to differentiate, but my sense is that more, because selling sex is the stigma already, because a woman Well, the majority of sex workers in Chiang Mai also Shan migrants, right? So they say that it's very taboo, it's stigmatized. So selling sex is stigmatized. For one thing, selling sex to again is the double stigmatized.
Okay, that's a double.
Mhm.
Sorry, other questions? Yes.
For interest. Okay, and, one of the reasons I came is because we're looking at male sex. We hear so much about female sex workers, particularly in Thailand. And this is probably beyond what you looked at. You are doing under the auspices of a health organization who would presumably also look at women's sex workers. And I'm just, you probably can't answer, but is there a difference in the way female sex workers see what they do and are looked upon in their agency as opposed to male sex workers?
Can I just follow and say, because it seems like, and maybe it's wrong, but there are Thai ethnographers working in Northeast Thailand who suggest that women, some women who are poor can actually go into the sex industry for some years and then cycle out of it and have acceptable roles back home. They go back home and they have resources. I don't know if that's even true, but that's the perception from some ethnographers. So it sort of follows up.
I'm sorry, the last part, I did not
So
get it. I'm going back
so
home.
some people studying Thai prostitution, studying women, have documented women who go for 5 years, 8 years, and then they make a lot of money, and then they go home, and because of that, they can buy a house.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can have resources, and it doesn't mean there's no stigma, but the way they're written about sounds like it's still somehow accepted. Is that what you're saying, Jeff? You're wondering if there's a difference?
Well, I was actually wondering about now, how they're perceived and how they see their agents. You know, you hear all the myths about girls being sold into sex slavery. These boys aren't sold into it. I don't know if there's any difference there. But on your point, Miriam, it would be interesting to follow some of these men after they retire, and do they phase back into life?
I mean, can they go back to the Shan state? Is that
Right,
even
right,
possible in the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
way? I guess
yeah.
that seems to be-
Yeah, well, the thing here is that they are migrant workers, right? So I did some work with the female sex workers as well, who are the Shan, but my work was like focusing specifically on Shan female migrant sex workers who contracted HIV and remain in the sex work. So then it become a kind of structural violence that placed upon their identities as being a female, being sex workers, and being pregnant, right? So this is all kind of structural violence that placed upon sex workers living with HIV. But my sense is that in general, I don't want to perpetuate this kind of idea that male are in the more like hierarchy position, therefore male sex workers have more control, have more power. But from what I have done work with both female and male sex workers, I feel that male sex workers have more control because they are heterosexual men, right? Whereas male gay Shan men sex workers that I talked, only 2 of them, I feel that they can offer both bottom and top. In fact, they would gain more of the clients, but actually they have to do a lot of things in order to get the clients, in which like they all want the real man. This is what they said. This is my take on that is that we are part of the patriarchy. So claiming the position as heterosexual men allow them to gain power in this gender hierarchy. So Miriam's question whether they would earn enough income and then they would go back home. Male migrant sex workers, because they are migrants, right? So most of them that I talk to, they would say that they don't want to go home anymore, right? So they don't want to go home anymore. Their hope is to live in Thailand. And then what they do is then to try so hard to find a Thai boyfriend in order for them to live in Thailand. But because like you are migrants, you are sex worker, you are female, then they also use their sexuality to find a male clients who can become their boyfriend and finally become their partner and grant them right to stay in Thailand too. Yeah. So is that answer your question?
Before I kicked everyone out of Zoom, yes, sorry. Which are people still listening in Zoom or no? Okay, so two more questions. One was if there are issues in human trafficking, which I'm getting from Jeff, that there's not with men the way there is with women. Does the Thai government either provide any support to sex workers, men or others, like healthcare? Or is there some kind of regulation over sex work? You said it's illegal.
It's illegal, yeah.
So if it's illegal, does that, I think the questioner wants to know, does that mean they just turn they just look away? Or do you know what I mean? Like maybe in the Netherlands or places, sex workers there is regulation, but there's also health support. I think that's maybe what the person's asking.
All right. For the first question about human trafficking,
Yeah.
I don't find it among the male sex workers, but I found it among female sex workers because maybe the population that I interview involved in the sex trade for a long, long time. I talked to 3 women who were trafficked to sex work because it was long time ago. Yeah, some involved in sex work for like 4 decades. So she was trafficked when she was very young, right? So, but I don't find that in work. Yeah. And the question about the regulations on the part of Thai government, because sex work is illegal, so Thai states. Should I pause for a while? Okay. Thai state dealing with this in 2 contradicting ways. So on the one hand, they regulate migrants to not enter into sex work because they have to register as the domestic work or manual labor, so they cannot engage in sex work, as well as they cannot engage in other types of services that we reserve for the Thai only. So then this is an aspect that Thai government regulate sex work, and then therefore migrants are not allowed to serve in sex work. But on the other hand, so Thai state turned a blind eye on, I'm not saying that the Thai state, because by law it's illegal, but the authorities turned a blind eye into sex work because so long as those in authorities could receive their bribe, and if I talk to some managers and they pay a huge sum of money every month. So, and that's why they don't want to be caught, what they call it, red hand, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they let the workers to negotiate the price themselves. So that's why the fact they pay under table money, but then still in your face, you have to pretend that you don't sell sex, right? So that's why they let the worker just like, okay, it's your business, but they take off the fee, right? So this is all hypocrite, right? In the sex work, if you're talking about state or business.
Maybe, but you have other questions?
No, I don't think, I think that you answered that. I'm just writing that I think she answered.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. So I want to ask, is emotional labor considered a part of this sexual work? And if yes, how does that affect their self-identification to their sexuality and how does that affect?
So I'm sorry, I don't get the last part. I get the emotional labor.
Emotional labor is, that's their understanding of what masculinity is, or masculine they are, and their sexuality.
Okay. That's very interesting question. I haven't like grabbed or I haven't had an idea how to put emotional labor into this, the whole thing, but definitely there is emotional labor, and they also claim to provide emotional labor to the clients, but that's like, because I'm dealing with different sexual venues, so like horse bar, of course, provide emotional labor to the clients. The clients come not for sex, directly for sex, they want emotional labor, and these guys claim to provide emotional labor. So the business owners also say that if they don't have the bodies, they need to know how to take good care of the clients. And when the clients pay them, take them out, they don't take them out for sex directly. They take them out for emotional labor first. They take them out for drink, for food. They take good care of them. This is what they claim. So this whole thing is emotional labor. So there's a literature among the male sex workers in Hong Kong and in China that they tend to reclaim their masculinity by claiming that their work is to provide emotional labor rather than direct sex, which I think there's element of emotional labor in there, but I'm trying to find way to integrate this. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much.
Are there other questions?
I want to hear
Oh,
from the
okay.
Thai, but yes, please go
Well,
ahead.
I can go to another topic, so it's, well, okay, I guess my second interest is, sure, this is related, I guess, to Raven Canal and the work that she's done. What comprises the eroticized male straight body for Thai? I mean, because the erotic body in America is quite different.
Yeah.
So what could you say about what are the features of the eroticized body for, I guess, these gay male clients? What do they look for? What turns them on, I guess?
It's a very interesting question. But because I talked to one gay man client who said that his or her taste is like tall, lean, Korean looking.
Mean hairless.
Like kind of fair skin and what do you call it? Soft masculine, right? But good physics, good bodies is different, and among different venues also cater different physics, different body type. So this gay man client saying that in a show bar they're ugly, but I don't know, ugly meaning that kind of small, dark, and lean, right? In a show bar where they perform big show, right? And in a horse bar and massage shops, this gay man client said that they have good body, meaning in the massage place, the clients look for the photo books where the workers present themselves in a half naked body, right? So the body is the way to attract the client. The clients choose the massage based on the body that they see in the photo books, or there may be a mirror, a glass door, which like the workers would line themselves up with half naked, so they need to have a kind of muscle, right? So the guy who worked as a freelancer in the restaurant said that because I don't have a good body nor a good looking face, so I ended up working as a freelancer in the restaurant, which get paid less than the rest of the establishment. Yeah. So good physiques and good bodies vary across the space, but I would say that the taste of Thai gay men also changed to become more of the soft masculine, non-threatening, right? So soft masculine, like baby face or cute face, and with the muscular body is the most attractive. Yeah.
But they want kind of like a hyper muscle body.
Muscle
And a
body.
K-pop face.
The K-pop face, yeah.
Ken,
Do they say anything about, I mean, like proportionate, like legs? Okay, I mean, it's not like a long legs.
Yeah, of course, if like, because, that client talked specifically about the worker that I interviewed, and he has that kind of long leg, tall. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I have a few points, like my observations and exchanges. So I feel like when you presented these Chan migrants, they're illegal migrants. Are they illegal or just legal migrants?
They're legal,
They're
they're, yeah,
legal, but,
they're registered.
but how did they like transfer from legal to, because you need to be registered and these businesses are illegal business in Thailand. And I feel like because of that illegality and the second classes that they face, that's why they want to empower. By during this interview, they trying to emphasize that agency through this research also. And I also find it hard to believe, like what you said, that as gender is fluid, as we believe, and it's hard to believe that they're only perform like as an active role in a way that when I hear your presentation. But I also want to give like our context here, because in Thailand, when most of the gay host club are performed by gay men, so it's hard for females or like female Thai to find heterosexual men in a bar. Otherwise, we have to pay so much. If you want to go to Thai club, it's super expensive. You need to have like at least 10,000 baht like in your hand, and that's like $200. So I'm not sure within this establishment are they mixed ethnics, or they're only explicitly Chan migrant workers, or they're mixed with Thai local, or even what's the dynamic between Chan refugees, because there are a lot of Chan refugees in Chiang Mai, right? So like made up like almost 20 to 30% of the population in Chiang Mai, versus the migrant workers. How are they like that stigma associated within the Chan community themselves?
Okay. So your point, the first point is about from legal to illegal, right? I'm not sure if I interpret your point correctly, but they're registered, and this is what they complain a lot, that they have to spend a lot of money for registration. So every year they have to pay for the passport, for documentation, but while at the same time they can be arrested anytime if the police come, because they don't work in the same type of job that they register for the work permit that they get. So, and the business owners let them find employers by themselves. The business owners don't take no responsibility of registering them, because sex work is illegal, right? So therefore, by working in a type of job that they did not register for, then rendering them illegal, right? Because they don't register in the same type of job and location where they register for. They work in different venues, they work in different type of job. So that therefore they are illegal. This is what I say. I don't know whether this is your point or not.
I just think it's very challenging for them to stay in the business, in like to become sex workers and having legal work permit in Thailand. I think they have to spend a lot of money around that.
But they know that the sex venues pay a huge sum of money. So yeah, but they complain that if the police come, they can be arrested. And then the owners, the managers would tell them that if the police come, you just go somewhere, right? So this is what they say. And your other point is about refugees. So I kind of don't want to go deep into that question because it's very complex that Shans are not allowed to have refugee status in Thailand, comparing with other groups of ethnic minorities from Myanmar, the Karen, the Karenni, the Mon, the Shan are not allowed to have refugee status, and they are not allowed to establish refugee camp in Thailand based on a few reasons. So one is that Shan and Thai are considered brothers, sisters, so they could blend in, assimilate in Thailand easily, so they don't need a refugee camp, right? And also other reason is that back then, about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when there was the heyday of drug trade by Khun Sa, if you might know. So Thai authorities were afraid that if they allow them to set up refugee camp, it would be a center for drug trade. So they never allow the Shan to set up refugee camp. So all the Shan migrants in Chiang Mai, in Thailand, even though they are refugees, nobody treat them as refugee. So it's the question. And who in the sex trade in Chiang Mai? So Chiang Mai sex venues claim that sex trade in Chiang Mai is cheaper than other places, and they need to be all like encompassing. They need to welcome all kinds of clients, so they cannot charge more like in Bangkok. So then Chiang Mai has a kind of very interesting mix of clients. So female clients can come for karaoke, for entertainment, being hosted by good-looking men, right? So then we see then a mixed scenes of heterosexual female clients, gay men clients, and they are coming from middle class, right? Mostly, but also can be kind of working class as well, right? I was told that there's some ethnic minorities like the Akha, but the sexual establishments that I went there, mostly Shan.
I think our time and our Zoom time is just about it, but I really want to thank Amporn for bringing this topic to UH campus, for allowing one of the most colorful presentations in living language and our imaginations, I guess. But thank you so much for this talk.
Yes, thank you so much. I've been ordered by my staff that I should now announce that we do have, thank you for your talk, and thank you to Cristiano for moderating. Please take the survey. There's a link in the chat, and plug our next talk. Right, so we have webinars. We have two different series. One is hybrid so that people can Zoom in. The other is purely webinar, which is our loose Southeast Asia transitions webinar we do with East West Center, Michigan State University, Chiang Mai University, and I think we just added one more, maybe Masculinity. So that's the first of our 4 webinars for the spring. It's February 8th. It's a panel discussion called Smallholders, Definitions, Presence, and Futures, with speakers from Hasanuddin, National University of Laos, and then some colleagues who are also at the cooperating institution. So please join us. We will post about it on our webpage. Thank you again. Did you stop recording?